Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It's Friday night, Gridiron Grinder time. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple of dudes hanging out talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. This is episode 170 of Gridiron Grinder. And for tonight, we're going to kick things off with Name That Stadium. Then we're going to cover the news from this past week. After that, we're going to give you guys our week 15 power rankings and game picks. And then we're going to close it off with our question of the week. And so, yeah, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
Pretty good, man. Just jamming away. And, like I was telling you, a little pancake breakfast this morning at the school, yada, yada. Fall asleep on the couch, almost missed the show, but we're here and we're rolling, man.
Yeah, it's me. I don't have that break between, so it's like I get done with work and I have a little bit of time. Don't have enough time to lay down and fall asleep.
Yeah, you just got to get jamming, man. Yeah. So, a little good, a little bad for me. It's nice to have that break, but also, apparently I abused it. So, yeah.
Hey,
Uh,
you woke up early and you're just getting off of a bad cold, so
well,
what could you?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, the pneumonia was kind of a bitch, but yeah, feeling a lot better. Even though even though I sound a little groggy, that's just because I was sleeping. But yeah, man, whenever you're ready, James, why don't you do a little name that stadium for us?
All right, I'm gonna try this one a little differently. I'm gonna start it off with telling everyone I'm in Buffalo and see what happens. But so
Just throwing it out there.
So, you know, as you can see, I'm traveling around this week to Buffalo to different stadiums that host NFL games, and your first person guesses right, you get an extra special shout out. We'll rewind it. You can rewind, you'll bookmark it. You can rewind it, watch it over and over again, show your friends how smart you are. Um, Maybe someday, if we ever are able to monetize this, we might have swag, but hey,
Yeah.
that's a long way based on our subscriber list. But anyways, last week I was in Dallas for Philly at Dallas. I thought it was going to be a good game. I didn't think it was that good of a game after watching it, but I thought it
Yeah.
was going to be probably the best or most interesting game of the week. But hey, sometimes you get it wrong, and I'm going to a Dallas game again this week, so there you go. I told you 3 times where I am. Somebody fucking guess because we haven't had anyone guess in a long time.
All right. So let's see. I just want to check our site while we're talking about it because, yeah, like at the one point, I think, the monetization we had made like something like, oh, 38 cents or something. And so after all this time, let's see if I can find that where it shows that. Oh man, it's not much. It's not much. Where's it at? Yeah, but you're just giving it away, hoping we'll get some taker. And oh, we're up to 43 cents.
Ooh,
Yay!
yes.
But you got to have $100 before they'll pay it out. So, you know, I don't know what that paces out to. 200 years from now, something like that, we'll get a hundred
Yeah,
bucks. We'll be in good shape. So,
something like that.
yeah, holy cow, 43 cents, man. So we haven't had any earnings since September. We made 4 cents. Dang. Wow. I guess it's been pretty rough for us this regular season. And oh, no, November 2021, that was our big winner. Oh, I'm sorry, May 2021, that was our big winner, 6 cents.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what video did it, but something from May 2021 was we're gonna have to revisit that. So
Yeah, we'll have to go back and figure that one out.
yeah, in the off season, we'll go digging it up and we'll just keep hitting the button for that episode. And if we get 6 cents a month, man, oh boy, we'll be there before you know it.
Yeah, uh, maybe maybe in your kid's lifetime
Jeez. Yeah, and then
or
on
your
YouTube,
grandchildren's lifetime.
yeah, we ended up losing a couple subscribers, right? So we're down to like 66. and I think you got to have 1,000 subscribers before YouTube will monetize your channel. So that ain't working.
Yeah, what can you do?
Well, just
Didn't
keep doing the show and keep having fun, right?
didn't really start doing this to monetize it. Well, I mean, hopefully monetize it,
No, it
but
would have been
more
a
did
nice
it
little
because
bonus, but it
more
was
did
for
it
fun.
because we enjoy it. So
Yeah, exactly. It's a good excuse to hang out, talk about football. All right, so James, why don't we do a little recap of the past week? And so, man, I just noticed, which would make sense now that I've seen your picks, is that C.J. Stroud is still in the concussion protocol,
hmm
and so he's listed as doubtful for this weekend. I just assumed he would have been cleared by now, but well, that's a bummer. That sucks. So, um, man, he's been having one heck of a season too. So did he get hurt early in that game or late in that game?
I
Because
want
I
to
know he had
say
like almost no stats or
I
like
want to say it was like,
no yards or touchdowns or whatever.
honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember seeing it, but I don't remember when it was, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange, right? Because this could have been like one of the rare years where a rookie could like potentially be in the MVP race, right?
Mhm.
Because he was leading the league in passing yards per game. He was really efficient with his touchdowns to interceptions. And then you look at a lot of the other big name quarterbacks. Mahomes is having a down year. Herbert out for the season. Um, Tua started off hot and then he fell off. Like it just, and then even with like Josh Allen, a ton of touchdowns, but like a million turnovers. And so it
Mhm.
was like, wow, man, it was like a wide open race. And then like last week, a lot of the people that I've been watching, they were saying, oh, because of all this, it's going to be the rare year that a wide receiver gets it, and Tyreek Hill would have been the guy. And then go figure, he got hurt last weekend, and so now that's in jeopardy. And so, um, but who knows, man? I don't know. It's almost like if none of these work out, what do you do? You're just going to give it to Josh Allen because of all the touchdowns, probably.
Oh man, I don't. Honestly, my leading contender for MVP right now, and this is gonna hurt me to say, is Dak Prescott.
Oh shit, yeah. You know what? You're right because they did start out of the gate kind of slow, but they have been on fire and they've been leading the league in scoring for however
hmm
many weeks. They were averaging something like 42 points a game at home or something. I mean, dude, yeah, that's yeah, shit, man. I forgot about Dak, man. Because yeah, they've been on a tear.
Yeah, outside of that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Tua is still leading in passing yards. It's Tua, Stroud, Purdy, then Dak, and Sam. Wow, Sam Howell's that fucking high,
Oh yeah, Sam Howell's throwing a ton of yards, but
but no touchdowns really.
yeah, the touchdowns haven't been there.
Uh, who's leading in total QBR? Brock Purdy's leading in QBR.
Yep. Yeah, and that's tough because I like Purdy and I think he should be in the conversation, but so many people discount him for the Shanahan system, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, come on, you still got to be good to, you know, perform that well within the system, right? So he's just getting dogged, man. And then of course they've got, and then like the other argument is, oh, well, McCaffrey really carries that offense right now, and that takes a lot of weight off of Purdy, and any quarterback could be doing what he's doing. I disagree, dude. I think he's like one of these rare Mr. Irrelevant picks that
Mhm.
it's like the perfect fit in the perfect place, and it's working incredibly well.
Yeah, and if you look at Dak's stats this year, he has 69.3% completion percentage, 3,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
Yep, that's probably taking the cake. Yeah, and they're like, you know, in it for the number one seed in the NFC, which is going to be a factor when people make that pick too, right? So,
Yeah, exactly. And outside of him, like I struggled to find like outside of him, like number two for me would be Hill. Like
yeah. Oh, yeah, and I mean, if Tyreek Hill didn't get hurt last week, I would have been totally comfortable making that case for him because he was on pace still for over 2,000 yards, right?
yeah, like I think he still is.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how much time's he going to miss now, right? You know, is he going to play this weekend? I didn't even get an update on him. I just heard it was not a good whatever it was, leg injury or whatever, ankle.
See, I heard it
You heard it wasn't
wasn't
bad?
wasn't bad. Like he's questionable.
Okay, yeah, and that usually means they're playing, right? So,
Yeah, that usually means they're playing. So he this year, where the fuck is it? Let's go to this. So he's averaging. No, it's not average. Man, fuck! I'm just gonna have to do this. Do
yeah,
this.
do the math, man. Do the math.
So he's played in 13 games.
Well, yeah, but you gotta say, oh, because they had a
Played.
bye. Yeah, I was gonna say make sure you add last week, right? But yeah,
He's averaging 119 yards a game.
okay. Dang, I thought it was higher. Well, I guess he started off with like 220 or something, and so yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of tailed off a little bit. Then last week he had like almost nothing, right? So, um, yeah, that makes it harder to get there, but it can still happen, you know? It just, can
and
he
they have
get
4
healthy
games
enough?
left. 5 4 2. He's on pace for. Of course, I did it in the cell that I couldn't fucking read. Let me try that again. This times 4 plus 1542. He's on pace for just over 2,000 yards.
Yeah. Well, let's see what he can do. I'd like to see him get it, man. You know, I know like being from Detroit, a lot of people are like, no way, man. Calvin Johnson, this, that, whatever. That's fine. I mean, you know, the Megatron thing was a great year, but Tyreek Hill's been freaking crazy electric too. So, you know, if he gets it, good for him, man.
Yeah, but the disparity between how that offense looks with him on the field versus with him not on the field
Yeah.
is is one of the things where it kind of pushes it a little bit over the edge for me.
Oh yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, you know, I did hear a lot of people talking about Mostert, you know, him having like 16 or whatever rushing touchdowns and, you know, how that offense is just so good. But I agree with you. When Tyreek's off the field, it does change a lot of what they do, man.
hmm Like that against Tennessee, like this past week, like that offense was dead in the water without him on the field.
Yeah, geez, that was a surprise. Like, oh, did I just leak a surprise game of the week? Maybe.
Possibly,
So,
possibly.
yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
All right. Well, yeah. So keeping it moving, I guess. You know, I think probably the big news from the past week was the Chargers fired their head coach Brandon Staley and their general manager Tom Telesco, and that was basically a follow up to them getting their shit pushed in last night
My
by the
God.
Raiders in Thursday Night Football. And so we'll come back to that for our question of the week.
I'll just say that I was reading an article. Not only was it a record points allowed for the Chargers, record points scored for the Raiders, but it was like the most points ever scored by a team that was shut out the previous week. in like the history of the
Oh,
NFL.
yeah, that's right, because they lost, what, 3-0 to the freaking Vikings the week
Yeah, they lost
before?
three nothing. That game almost became the first game in NFL history to end regulation at 0-0.
Jeez, yeah, that was a bad game, dude.
Like ironically, I thought that was the most interesting game that happened last week, just simply because of the fact that it was like I was intrigued to see if anyone's gonna score.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you would have thought Minnesota would find a way to get it working, right? But you could say the Raiders with, the rookie quarterback and everything could have been streaky, but even then, Minnesota with, Dobbs sputtering out, and then they turned to Nick Mullins, and it's like everything got really ugly for them. And um, yeah, just a bad game, man. Just a bad game. All right, so let's see what else we got going on news-wise. And I'm slacking here, but I'm just scrolling through NFL.com here a little bit. And so,
So
um,
while you're
yeah,
scrolling, I got something. Did you see? I think it was Dean Blandino's comments about officiating in the NFL.
does it have
Uh,
to do with the Kadarius Toney thing? Because
no,
that's been huge in the news, right?
that has which Tony was offsides.
Yeah, and he didn't check in with the ref, so it was on
Yeah,
him.
it's on him. And from my experience of being on a sideline of a maybe not an NFL game, when a receiver lines up off sides, he's going to say, "Hey, 10, move
Yeah,
back a little bit,
yep.
move back," and tell them because you're so far out. It's like it's not like you're right on the ball.
But yeah,
He'll
usually the receiver like does
Yeah,
like a hand motion or
I'm
something to check
on the
in.
line or off the
Yeah,
line, and I'm good. Yeah, yeah, and Tony didn't. That
and
it had nothing.
It's not like Tony's like a rookie that's like new to the position or something, right? He's played
Yeah.
wide receiver for a long time. It's like, dude, you got to know by now.
Yeah, and see, like that, like the whole shit with that is more of because that was who those the
The Buffalo
Bills
game.
game,
Yeah.
but the week before the officials screwed Kansas City out of the game by basically
Oh
Travis
yeah.
Kelce being pushed down in the end zone in the last play, and they didn't call interference. It's like he was pushed to the fucking ground.
Yeah,
I
Mahomes
don't
got
care
pretty
if it's
pissed off about, yeah.
I don't care if it's a Hail Mary into the game. Like if it's a penalty in the first fucking minute of the game, it should be a penalty in the
Yeah.
last second of the
you,
game.
you call it. And it's interesting you say that, right? Because we've heard a lot about that over the years where when it comes down to crunch time, sometimes the refs just let them play that
Hmm.
shit out. And it's like, what was it, the Saints against, how did it
Oh,
work?
the
Yeah,
Rams, the
yeah,
Saints against the Rams in the NFC Championship game
yeah,
where the guy like it was a clear pass interference call, which led to a season of pass interference being reviewable.
exactly. Yeah, because you couldn't review it, and it was such like a blatantly obvious thing that they ended
Hmm.
up making it a reviewable call the next year, and it's just like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, and that didn't go fucking well because nobody knew what the fuck pass interference was then because you
Yep.
would see stuff where it was
Yeah.
clear pass interference, but with Kelsey being pushed down, if you like normally on that play, yes, I agree. There's going to be bumping, there's going to be shit happening, but when you when it's something as blatant as that where the guy extends his arms and the ball's going one way and Kelsey's going the fucking other way.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's not going that way because he thinks the ball is going to be deflected to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, freaking yeah. Well, it's the people part of the game, man. People make
Hmm.
mistakes, and it's a bummer, but that's
But
just the reality.
that does lead into what Blandino said.
Okay. Yeah. What'd he say?
Blandino said that refs have been, I want to say this right. So the headline is, says NFL refs have been approached about manipulating games for gambling purposes.
Oh shit. Okay.
He said we had situations where people were approached. We've always told our officials because they're in hotels, they're traveling around during the season. We don't want them wearing NFL branded gear. They want them
Yeah, they got to be
inconspicuous.
non-discreet, or they got to be discreet. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and they know they're supposed to go to NFL security if something like that happens, and that has happened in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that, because the gambling thing has gotten so widespread. If you can identify an official, I could see a lot of people putting pressure on them, right?
Mhm.
But you got to trust that these officials are, going to be high in their ethical conduct and do their job right.
Well, it's not they apparently they fucking check up on the refs. Like this quote is so he says the NFL has so many controls in place that just to become official, they look at all of your business associations, they look for conflicts of interest, all of that, bank accounts, everything, and there's checks during the season. And so they'll look at if a game official has $10 in their bank account on Friday, and then they work a game and now there's $100,000, that's a red
Yeah,
flag.
yeah,
So
yeah,
so they check the fucking bank accounts, monitoring the betting lines, and looking at how calls impact those lines, and are there individual officials that are involved in more of those calls? Because what the league
yeah.
doesn't want is, and what we never want, it was a situation like what happened in the NBA. So I mean, I like but like the fact that somebody's saying, yeah, officials have been approached about fixing games, that leads right into like the fucking narrative with when like there's a bad call, everyone's like, oh, the officials are on the take and da da da
Yep,
da,
yep.
or they knew the spread was 3.5, so they made sure they only got a field goal or whatever, whatever bullshit. I'm not saying any officials do that. I've never thought when I saw bad calls that oh the officials must be on the take. That's why they
Yeah.
made the call. It's never been a thought that's crossed my mind, but people out there do say that.
Well, if you got money on the line and it goes against you, you're going to get a little bitter and make those accusations at some point. But
Mhm.
I'm with you, man. Like, I look at it as, hey, there's so many games, and I think Vegas has been doing this long enough to know where to put all the lines to make the maximum amount of money,
Mhm.
and they don't need the refs to cheat to get their take, right? And so, it's just that some of them are going to look that way because that's how the NFL is, man. Like any game can be wildly different than you think. I mean, we see it. That's why we do our surprise games of the week, right?
Mhm.
Because some weeks it's just like, holy shit, like nobody saw that coming.
Yeah, and it's like, but with it though, I was surprised. I being surprised that somebody actually can say it. Like, I think it was more of a problem before basically gambling was legal everywhere.
Yeah.
When it was run out of somebody's back room, um, and shit like that, and you had the goons and the mafia involved. Like, what was it? I forget the school. I think it was one of the SUNYs, one of the New York schools. Might have been Stony Brook. I don't want to say it was Stony Brook, but back in like the 40s or 50s, the entire team basically was involved in a point shaving scandal where
Oh,
they
jeez.
they would win the games, but they would make sure that they never went over a certain amount or make
Yeah.
sure
Let's
like
tone it
they
down,
didn't
guys. Yeah. We're
one way or
blowing them
another
out.
slow play it. And then you had the Black Sox scandal in baseball back in what was that, the 20s, where they ele- where they apparently were paid to throw the World Series.
That's nasty, man.
Yeah, so I don't think I think back when those type of people were involved in gambling instead of like these big corporations, it was like there was more of a risk. But now that it's legal, basically, well, everywhere but California,
Yeah.
basically everywhere but California, it's less likely to occur.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. All right, well let's get a few more things of the news, and so I've only got a couple more. One of them is SoFi is going to host the Super Bowl again. Looks like
Hmm.
in 2027. So good for them. You guys got a baller of a stadium. You might as well use it. And then also the NFL for the international games looks like they are doubling them starting in 2025. And next year, they're adding a game to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And
Really, I
so,
missed that.
yeah, so the international stuff is it's picking up steam, man. And I think it's cool that Sao Paulo's getting a game. You know, I went there once and I got to watch a World Cup game there, and dude, Brazil went crazy. But of course, they're huge on soccer. I don't know how they'll be on football, but um, doubling up in 2025, I'm sure some of the players are going to bitch about it, right? Because some of them really do not like going overseas. But um, it is what it is, man. This is becoming a more and more popular sport, and that's just how it evolves, right?
Hmm.
So if you're going from 4 to 8, it's not the end of the world either. I mean, how many
Yeah,
fucking football games are there, dude? 16 a
but
week?
but if you go to 8, that's a home schedule for a team.
Oh, I see where you're going, James. I see
If
where
you
you're
go to
going.
8, that's a full home schedule for a team.
Yeah, they're planting the seed, right?
Hmm. Oh, it's the seed was planted a long fucking time ago, but
Yeah. Oh yeah, now they're just like sticking a stake in the ground. Um, so yeah, how do you think that would work then? You would rotate an international team? Like you would have them in like in England or something, but maybe they do a couple games in Germany and a couple games wherever, and it's just like they're like a floating home team over in Europe.
what I've been reading is 4 teams, whole division.
So, well, all right, so then you really got to expand it. You got to
Hmm.
go from 8 games to a whole heck of a lot more, right? So,
Yeah, so that'd
um,
be 32, but yeah, I'm what I've read is that if they expand internationally, it'll be an international full division. So because that would cut down on some of the travel back here.
yeah, and so then you're talking conference realignments because that's adding a lot of teams to the into the league. So,
Yeah.
that'd be interesting, man. Yeah, because so it'd be four. So it's like basically you're adding two to each side, right? Two to the AFC, two to the NFC.
Well,
And
you couldn't do it that way.
well, that's what I'm trying to say is like I'm trying to figure out how you would, assimilate them
Yeah.
into it and realign the conferences to make it work, Because what else are you going to do? Have there be a third conference with just those 4 teams and then it's like, hey, the playoffs now we're going to have somehow 3 conferences coming in.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know how it would work because you'd have a balanced discrepancy unless you did it as I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out how it works, but how it would work. But that's what the rumors are saying is that if they were to expand, they would put a division over there. That's why they're playing games in Germany. They're playing games in London. They're
Yeah.
playing game. What's the other? They play games in Frankfurt, didn't they last year? Or
Yeah,
is that this year?
Frankfurt and Munich. Yep.
Yeah, they've done Frankfurt and Munich, and they've done London, and it's kind of their way of gauging interest there
Yeah.
to determine if it's a viable option.
Yeah, because I mean, if you added two per conference, you could basically go from 4 divisions of 4 to 3 of 6, right? And then you have 3 divisions on each side, and you can still do like first round playoff bye and stuff like that. Um, but you'd have bigger divisions, you know. So otherwise, I don't know how you'd do it because you'd have uneven divisions. You got to even the divisions, right? So
So I don't know.
yeah, that's not for us to worry about tonight.
Yeah, yeah. Anyways, moving on.
uh,
My head hurts thinking about it.
yeah. So, this is probably lower on the priority list, but worth mentioning is that Al Michaels, longtime commentator, is not going to be calling a playoff game for NBC this season. And so that's what, probably the first time in a long fucking time?
See, I didn't know he was supposed to, so I was like, Al Michaels was supposed to call a game for NBC this season, so
Yeah, and I didn't read the article. I mean, I know he's been around a long time. I guess I just assumed he'd been calling a playoff game every year, right?
I guess obviously he has. So I didn't read the full article. What the part I did read was it back in I want to say his name's Adam Marchand. He's works for the New York Post. Has a podcast. We had Michaels on in September, and so how tied in Marchand is to like the sports media news. He was asking Al Michaels about rumors that he wouldn't be calling a game for NBC back in September.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it apparently it's not that big a deal. Like there's all sorts of, and I don't want to mention this. This is the only time I will bring this fucking up on on this show. Apparently, Al Michaels said something, had some sort of conspiracy theory about
Oh,
um,
jeez.
Taylor Swift,
Oh, all right.
and
The
they're
Swifties
one
got him.
and they're wondering, and there's like um, apparently it emerged like as he lost it. I don't fucking know. Okay,
Yeah, so the Swifties got him canceled.
okay. So a conspiracy theory is suggesting that he lost his playoff gig with NBC due in part to his recent comment about the attention on Swift at NFL games. Uh,
Because yeah, that's a whole piece of the fan base now that you can't piss them off, right? So,
so apparently, what he said was, which I like it, is what we're gonna do tonight. Everything in moderation. Our crew talked about it this morning. You can't make a sideshow the show. So apparently called Taylor Swift a sideshow.
yeah. I don't
Um,
I don't think it's that bad, man, if that's all he said.
Yeah, the vast majority of the audience are tuning in to watch a football game. There are people, I don't know how many, it could be a sizable number, but it's certainly not a majority that if you train the camera on her all night long, they'd be satisfied with that. That's not what we're going to do.
Uh, well, good. Good for him.
I really wish, or was it, I really wish 99% of those real football fans could understand showing a human. Oh, this is somebody else's comment.
Okay. No, I mean, hey, it drove us nuts, right? But I get it. The
Yeah.
league wants that attention. And so they put the kibosh on him because it made waves with the Swifties. So, whatever. F that shit. All right. So, yeah, I guess aside from that, James, my last couple things here. I guess we didn't really talk about Herbert, right? So he broke his index finger, had surgery, and he is going to be out for the season. And maybe that ties into some of the Brandon Staley stuff. We'll come back to that.
Yeah,
Um,
and Pacheco had surgery on his shoulder again.
oh, geez, I missed that one. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I missed it too up until it's like he he went he obviously he's out on Sunday. He it's referred to as cleanup surgery on his shoulder. Um and so he's apparently it's not apparently he could return to full practice next week. So it's not as bad,
Yeah.
but still to have to go through surgery. Obviously, he's going to be out this week.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And then the last thing I had just real quick was Debo Samuel. He scored his 19th rushing touchdown, which sets the record for a wide receiver. And so, multi-purpose guy on the field. It's nice, it's good and everything, right? Except that like it's one of those things where what was it like a year or two ago where he was pulling like a Le'Veon Bell, making
Mm-hmm.
comments about, well, I should be paid what a running back gets paid plus what a wide receiver gets paid. And it's like, no, dude, don't go there because, uh, if anybody's getting that, it's a guy like McCaffrey who is getting it because, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he is putting up the rushing yards, the rushing touchdowns, the receiving yards, and the receiving touchdowns. It's like, come on, Debo, you're not like fucking putting up 1,500 rushing yards on top of your 1,000 receiving yards. You're putting up maybe a couple hundred and a handful of touchdowns every year. It's a totally
Mm-hmm.
different thing, man.
Yeah, sometimes I just think that these NFL players are, what's the word I'm looking for?
Greedy.
Well, yeah, crazy, but are too. I, you know what? I'm drawing a blank on the word. Like,
That's okay.
too. I was gonna say something, but like my mind went blank with the word.
Yeah, and you want to be
Yeah.
politically correct with it, but
Yeah.
and look, I want these guys to get what they're due, right? I just
Mm-hmm.
want them to be like live in reality. Like you can't say that you should get the combination of two top position money combined when you don't do that kind of production. It's like I don't know. I just yeah, let's be real here. I get
Yeah.
it. You want to reach for the sky and then whatever you get you'll be happy with or whatever, but it looks bad when people are that aggressive about it.
Yeah, it looks bad, but they're advocating for themselves, and I understand that, but they're just unrealistic on what they think, unrealistic on their value. There we go.
Yeah,
There's the politically correct word to
there
say
you
it.
go. Yeah. Yeah, and I get, some of it's position, right? Like the running backs were complaining this offseason. A lot of them get bitter because the quarterbacks get the money and the
Mm-hmm.
and the running backs have the shorter shelf life and they're easier to swap out in general. It doesn't mean that there's not like a handful of like elite kind of tier running backs. It just means that, a lot of times after that first contract's up, man, you got nothing left on your, no rubber left on the tires. It's just the way
Mm-hmm.
it goes, unfortunately.
Exactly. And there's a younger, better guy coming in every year. So
Yeah, and a lot of times for the running backs, it's like mid-round or late-round picks or even undrafted guys, and so it's
yeah.
like, it's just diluted.
No,
Uh, yeah,
I I get that. Like I think the running back position it's not undervalued, it's diluted
yeah,
because there's too many, and it's a supply and demand thing. It's pure economics. If you have 64 different running backs that can have a good season, why are you going to pay why are you going to pay number 32 10 million when you can pay number 64 3 million?
yeah. Well, yeah, and you're still gonna get the Derrick Henrys of the world
Yeah.
and
Derrick
the
Henry's,
McCaffrey. Yeah,
McCaffrey.
the guys that are a very clear step above the rest,
Mm-hmm.
and those guys are gonna get freaking paid big time, right? Because you know the all these mid-tier guys, they can be very good, but they'll probably not get to that level. And
Yeah.
so those handful of guys are always going to make their money. It's just that, man, it's so easy to swap out at like the next level down, and so it's tough.
Yeah. And it's like there's not like between like there's probably like three or four running back, two to somewhere between two and four running backs that are worth top value. Between number 5 and number 60 is not that big of a drop off.
Yeah,
Between number number 3 and number 5, yeah, it
Yeah.
is a big drop
Yeah,
off.
it falls off a cliff a little bit, and then
Yeah,
everybody's in the same pool. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's
So,
different with wide receivers. It's and it's almost similar to the tight end game, right? Except that there's just, people don't put the attention on tight ends. In any given year you got maybe three like elite level tight ends. And then
exactly.
everybody else is a crapshoot. It's like, they'll probably put up 500-600 yards, and like we'll see what happens, right? So
Pretty much.
all right, well, let's do some surprise games of the week, James. Why don't you,
One bit of, well, since you're going to surprise games of the week,
oh, I'm skipping
um,
news. Sorry, go
you
ahead, man.
you missed the fact that last night's score to the Chargers Raiders games was the 1,083rd unique score in NFL history.
Yeah, no, I did not hear that. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Sorry, I little joke. I wanted to
Yeah,
joke
how
about
many
that.
combinations of twos, threes, sixes, sevens, and eights can you come up with, right?
Basically.
Apparently 1,000 and whatever you said, right? So yeah,
And don't forget the ones and the
yeah, for the extra points. Well, that's kind of where I was like sixes and sevens, right? Because sometimes you don't get the extra point, but yeah.
yeah. It's apparently the 1,083rd different final score in an NFL game. And
Sweet.
that's not. I found it interesting being a numbers guy.
Yeah, no, I get that, man. Yeah, because I mean, you probably get a lot of them that are repeating scores, like 24 to 14 or whatever. Probably
Hmm.
happens 50 times a season or something, and so it just,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, now it makes me wonder what's the most common score, because that's what you want to know if you're playing squares or something, right? So, uh, but that would you could almost isolate that to the Super Bowl, except that could the sample size be good enough because the league has changed over time, It's like, what do they say? Normally you want 30 data points for a decent sample size, but if you went back 30 years ago, it was a run first league. So I'm not sure those scores are the same as what you're getting today in a pass first league.
So, and this article's it's a little old. Let me see if I can quickly find something newer. Uh, all right. So this article is saying different than what I. Oh, okay, so it would have been the first game since 1943 to end as a 0-0 tie, have in regulation as 0-0 tie.
Okay.
Um, but it tied the lowest score in the post merger history of the NFL.
Gotcha.
Was that? But so apparently, the most common score in an NFL game is 20-17.
Wow. Okay. Good to know.
As of 2000, and this is 2021, so it's a little. I'm sorry, this is earlier this year, so I don't know. I don't know how many times it's happened this year. I didn't
Yeah. But that's still
look it
probably
up.
pretty solid, right? Because that's
It's
taken a
happened.
lot of years of data.
It's happened 282 times.
Okay.
The next one is 27-24, which has happened 230 times.
So you want to have a seven in the squares.
Yes, apparently. Because the third most common is 17-14,
Oh,
which has
geez.
happened
So you want
200
seven.
times.
So you want seven and four.
Yeah, and then it's 24 to then you have it's like 24 to 7, 7, 7, 4, 3, or 0 are the numbers you want looking at it.
Write that down, people. Write that down. It's December, but the squares will be here for Super Bowl in 2 months, man.
Yeah.
Adding value to people's lives, James. We probably just made a whole bunch of people rich watching Gridiron Grinder, and maybe one day they'll help us get monetized on the show. Hey, we
Yeah.
scratch your back, you scratch ours.
Yeah.
So,
Too bad the squares are randomly drawn in after everyone has their box.
oh, well, yeah. So I've done it both ways, right? And that's where I like what you're talking about because that's the fair way of doing it. But, the other, I'm going to quote it, fair way is if you can do it where there's a drawing for you get to pick, hey, you get to pick the first two sets of squares or whatever because you drew the number and then the next guy gets to go and whatever and yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very hard to do nowadays, right? Because a lot of these parties and a lot of things are separated. I
Hmm.
did those like back in college when you would get everybody at a party together and you could do it that way where it's like, okay, everybody's going to pick a number out of a hat. And then whoever wins gets to pick, almost everybody would pick like seven and I don't
Hmm.
know, zero or whatever was like the popular shit back then. But, um, it's just, yeah. How do you do that now, man? It'd be tough.
So for the Super Bowl, I think it's different for common score.
Yeah. I would still go with those numbers though, because it's, like I said, it's hard because you only got 50 something games and the sample size is going to change going from the run first era to the pass first era.
All right. So here we go. Around 20% of all first quarters in the Super Bowl have zeros.
Okay.
20.9% is 07 or 70.
Yeah. 7 and 0 got to be the best numbers. Yeah.
16.4% are 03 or 30.
Yeah. 7, 4, 3, and 0. Those are your numbers, guys.
So at halftime, 7 remains the luckiest number, while 4 has the highest odds of winning by the end of the third quarter.
Okay.
4-0 has the best chance of winning a few prizes. 3-0 box carries a higher probability of winning the final game. Since the 70s, yeah, interesting.
Nice. Nice.
I digress to. So the most desired numbers, or best numbers, most common numbers: 0, 1, 3, 4, and 7.
Okay. All
Hey,
right,
you
James.
brought up squares.
Yeah.
Let's go to surprise games of the week.
Give me some surprise action here.
First one. I don't know which one to pick as first. Like,
I was surprised the Rams hung in there with the Ravens.
yeah, I'll give you that, but
I mean, the
Lamar
Ravens got the
was
win,
sick.
but it was on a freaking punt return in overtime.
Hmm. and and Lamar was sick, so you got to give him a little break there. But he
Sure.
had a good game. Like, he had a solid game. Yeah, I, I'll give you that. And winning on a punt return, wasn't there like a delay in the game or something? I remember that game. Like, wasn't that the game that like almost cut into like Sunday Night Football?
Oh man, it might have. I don't remember. I didn't get
Oh
to
no, no, it
see
was
the.
in Baltimore. It was one. It was the Chargers game that almost cut into Sunday Night Football somehow.
Okay.
There was like a long delay in that game.
Gotcha.
Uh, Let me see if this has it. No, it doesn't. Yeah, for some reason, like the Chargers game, there was like a huge delay, like a big injury or something that like I was like turning over to Sunday Night Football like
Yeah.
right. or maybe it was one of the games. Like I can't remember what game, but like it was like, will this game end before Sunday Night Football kicks off? Was the question. But anyways, the Rams Baltimore. I didn't see much of the game. The Rams have been playing better, and Baltimore had Lamar sick, and even though he had a good game, and I think don't they have like a tough game this week?
Oh, you think it was
No, they played the
they were
Jags.
looking past him a little bit?
I thought I was thinking that, but they played the Jaguars this week. It's next week
Okay,
that they have the 49ers next week.
gotcha.
So I forgot about Jacksonville. I thought this week was the 49ers, so they kind of looked past. I thought they were looking past them. I don't know. I didn't see much of the game to really have gotten the flow of the game, but I'll give you that as a surprise.
Sure, yeah. Well, what else you got, man? Or what? Well, what do you have?
I was going to start with
The 3-0. Just a surprise because it was so low.
so an article I read or saw. I'm sorry, an article I saw that. And let me see if I want to quote the article. The brand of football Minnesota and Vegas played on Sunday set the NFL back 16 years.
Right.
It was just a terrible game. Like I don't know what to say about that game. Like there was total yards in the game was like 20. Total yards 231 for Minnesota, 202 for Vegas. Yeah, like I
Yeah,
said, like
that's low.
20. Um, and that's on 11 drives for Minnesota, 12 drives for Vegas. So that's what, like, call it 20 yards a drive.
Yeah,
Um, Minnesota, 99 passing yards
yeah, that's weak.
on 36 passing attempts.
Real weak. Yeah, and you're supposed to be, this like creative passing guru of a head coach, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I get it, you got quarterback problems, but if you're that good, you're going to find a way to get some production through the air.
Yeah. And this rushing yards, like, Vegas had 56 rushing yards and 146 passing yards.
Yeah,
All right. There's not much about that game. It was interesting to see if they could end in 0-0,
yeah,
and that's about all that was interesting in it. And it's a boring game when you're rooting for no score.
yeah. I think it'd be one thing if it was like a real sweet defensive battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But neither of those teams are known for their defense.
No, and it wasn't like the defense. Neither defense really did shit. Just the
Yeah,
offenses couldn't get out of their own damn way.
yeah. What did
Uh,
you think about the Jets over the Texans, man? Would that
so
surprise category for you, or is it, well, Stroud got
that
hurt and
was
whatever?
well, no, because Stroud got hurt with less than 7 minutes left in the game.
Okay, well, that's what I was wondering. I didn't know how late
Yeah.
it was when he got hurt.
So it was real late.
Okay,
I would count that as a surprise, but with the Texans, it kind of well, somehow the Jets are still in the fucking playoff hunt. Like I don't know how the fuck this happens.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and with the Texans, they're ahead of schedule, but you kind of got to remember that they're still in the first year of a rebuild, right? So,
exactly. They're in the first year of a rebuild. They're gonna have games like this. I'm surprised it's a surprise that they've won 7 games this year. I pegged them at like 4 to 5.
yeah,
So I mean they're I hate saying they're ahead of schedule because it's no real schedule because then what happens next year if they slouch back? I think they're outplaying where they are this year.
I got you. Makes sense to me.
And And they won't. Stroud's had a phenomenal year. He had an off game. He's a rookie. He's about to have an off game. It was their it was their 13th game of the season, which in college he played maximum 13 games in the season.
Gotcha.
Most likely 12, especially at Ohio State, because Ohio State hadn't been playing in the last 2 years, hadn't been playing in the Big Ten championship game. So I could see that, and even in the seasons, if he played 13 games, there's like a month break between game 12 and game 13. So that could be part of it, where the length of the season is getting to him.
Sure.
But that I would count that as a surprise. But also, it's not the more of a surprise is the Jets' offense played well.
Yeah, that's always a surprise.
It wasn't their defense. It doesn't surprise me. Their defense, they have a fucking phenomenal defense. If
Yeah.
they had a mediocre quarterback, they'd probably be 8-5 instead of 5-8.
Yeah, we'd probably be talking about, one of like the better defenses in recent years if they had a
Mhm.
complementary offense, right?
Yeah.
It's just that they're on the field so freaking much that eventually they get burned.
Yeah. Well, it's not that they're. It's not even that. It's so total yards allowed. They average per game less than 300 yards allowed.
Yeah, they're really good, man.
Um, they're the fifth lowest yards allowed. Cleveland at 263, Baltimore at 284, Dallas at 289.9. Here's the surprise: Carolina
Oh,
at
wow.
298.4. That's how bad
Yeah.
that offense is doing in Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, it was a surprise, right? Because we knew Carolina's defense was good. It
Hmm.
just like, wow, yeah, the offense that bad, they couldn't squeak out more than one win so far.
Yeah, and then the Jets at 299. So they're barely fifth. They're just right behind it. We're right behind Carolina. And so I mean, it's not that much of a surprise. That's a surprise. Huh. I did not know that.
What's that?
So I just pulled up the team stats and its average per game. The Lions have the fifth most rushing yards per game this season so far.
Oh, I believe it. We're one of the heavier run teams, right? And we've
Yeah,
just been splitting it between the two running backs.
right. But the reason I say that's a surprise is because that's not historical MO of the Lions.
No, I think they turned that corner last year. They beefed up the offensive line and they just started pounding the rock. But
Yeah.
yeah, before the Dan Campbell era, we were one of the bottom of the barrel rushing attacks for many, many, many years. Like since Barry Sanders, many years.
Yeah, which which Barry Sanders is the reason why you get points for yards in fantasy.
Yeah,
Because fantasy used to be you got points for touchdowns. It was touchdowns only until Barry Sanders came around, and he would have like 300 yards in the game and
no
get no
touchdowns.
points
Yeah,
because he didn't score a touchdown because he played between the 20s, and then they didn't put him
yeah.
in the red zone because they didn't want him to get hurt because it's more of a power style than a finesse in the red zone. But the Jets defense doing well is not surprises. Their offense played good. Zach Wilson didn't have a turnover, which I mean, shit. I don't think I've uttered that sentence before in my life. Um,
Well, he needs it if he's going to be playing somewhere next year, right?
yeah,
He's got to audition. So
yeah, and then the one I was debating the whether the Broncos Chargers how utterly dismantled the Chargers were in that game,
yeah,
or the Eagles Cowboys. I think the Eagles Cowboys was my biggest surprise of the week. Like, because like the Titans Dolphins, we can you know attribute that to Tyreek Hill missed about 40 missed like 40% of the offensive snaps, and that offense is completely different without Tyreek Hill. But the Eagles Cowboy, well, no, I'm gonna go back to that one. I would say the Dolphins Titans was the biggest surprise of the week.
Yeah.
Eagles Cowboys was a close second because if you look at the scoring of the Dolphins Titans, and I want to double check this, but if I remember correctly, with like 4 minutes left in the game, the Dolphins were up by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, yeah, they were. Yeah, and Tennessee had a sweet late game surge, man.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
I would have thought it was a
4:34.
surprise anyhow with them having Levis at quarterback, and even with Tyreek Hill getting hurt, you would think that Miami's offense would just be that powerful, and that Tennessee's offense would struggle to match them on points. But um, definitely props to Tennessee for coming out in that game, man.
Yeah, and so I would say that that would be my biggest surprise. Just exactly how it happened. Yeah, the Dolphins didn't have Tyreek Hill, which hindered the offense, but just just being up by 2 touchdowns that late, especially how well Miami's defense has been playing
Yeah,
as of late. They haven't had a good full season, but not they've had decent games the last couple weeks from what I remember, what I've seen. And then to give up 2 touchdowns that quickly, and then the offense up, and for the offense not to do anything when they got the ball back after, because there was like 3 minutes left in the game when Tennessee scored their second to make it 27-21, which Vrabel went for two to win the game because it was 27-13. So if he kicks the extra point, then we're talking a different ball game than on it, because then like at the end of the game you're going to kick the extra point and it's going to be a tie game, as opposed to the touchdown and extra point win the game for you.
yeah,
But the last two drives, like the Dolphins, they had 3 plays for 8 yards, and then they had 6 plays for 16 yards on their last two drives, and for that to
sputter out at a key
sputter
time.
out like that, and Tua was, I want to say Tua was sacked. It was basically the end of the game. Tua was sacked. I thought he was sacked another time, but I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
But just kind of sputtered out at the end of the game as a surprise. So I'll give you that.
All right, man. Well, hey, let's do a little segue over to the power rankings.
All right. At the top of my board, 1 through 5, how it played out, there is no changes to my top 5.
Keeps it easy for you.
Because you had Baltimore, San Francisco, Dallas, all one. I had them 1 through 3. Philadelphia, Detroit, Miami, Seattle, Kansas City, Houston. That's like were in my top 10. All those teams in my top 10 lost.
Yeah.
So I left it with Baltimore, San Francisco, Dallas, Philadelphia, Detroit. I really wanted to drop Detroit down for losing to Chicago, but it was a division game, and every single team I had behind them lost. Like
Yep.
right there, like basically the next four of the next 5 teams I had lost.
Yeah,
So
so you had like a log jam on the board,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. So like it ends up with no real movement in my top 5.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I had a couple what I would say are harder, bigger moves than what I would normally do on my board. And I did that intentionally to try and clear some of the log jam on my board because I had it at a couple spots on my board. I had it near the top, and then I had it happen again sort of like later on, and I didn't want to just have it be the exact same. I was like, ah, no, I can't
Hmm.
do that. So, but yeah, so for me, at 1, I've still got the 49ers. At 2 and 3, I flipped Philly and Dallas. So now I've got Dallas at 2, Philly at 3. At 4, I've got Baltimore. I was almost tempted to move them up to 3 and drop Philly down, but I decided to keep them because, that sort of like the way that Baltimore game played out just had me wanting more from them. And I know Philly, their loss was not a great loss, but it was just enough for me to keep it that way. And then at 5, I've got the Dolphins. And so that's similar to what you're talking about with like Detroit and some of those teams, is that the whole next wave of teams like pretty much lost on my board. So it was hard to like drop Miami without like really going overboard and raising a different team. And so I kept them at 5. And yeah, back to you at 6, man.
All right, at 6, I had Miami, and they lost, but most of the teams right there, right in here, lost. So I left Miami at 6. 7 is where I've had my first movement. I moved Buffalo up 5 spots, and this was kind of maybe a correction for me killing them too much with how they were playing, where they had the hiccup
Yeah.
in the season. But they beat Kansas City, who I had at number 4 or number 6. So, or no, I had Kansas City at 7. Let me see where I had Kansas City real quick.
Sure.
So they beat my number 7 team. So I moved Buffalo up to number 7, which was a 5-spot bump. Seattle, even though they lost to San Francisco, they lost to my number 2 team, who actually probably is starting to gain traction to becoming my number 1 team. And so Seattle lost, but stayed at 8.
And they had
Cincinnati,
Drew Lock at quarterback, right? So
yeah, it was exactly. They had Drew Lock at quarterback. It wasn't Geno Smith, so I wasn't going to really kill them for it. If Geno Smith is out for a longer period, I
yeah,
may
but
rethink
they
that.
but they played really well with Drew Lock at quarterback. They didn't get
Yeah,
blown out in that game.
exactly. Then at Seattle,
9.
Cincinnati 9, I moved Cincinnati up 1 spot from 9. This was more because I corrected Kansas City down to 10, and when I look at it, Kansas City seems to really, really be sputtering.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't want to move them outside of the top 10 off of a loss to Buffalo, who I had at butting up against the top 10. I think Kansas City is at risk for falling and losing more games. Like, they've lost games that they shouldn't have lost.
Yeah.
They lost this game because of a stupid mistake.
But
And
this game, so all right, so here, the last game where you talked about that penalty that they should have gotten, that's a little different, right? That's kind of like a fluke, just you got a bad rash of luck against you. This game with Tony being offsides, this is like, exactly what's been wrong with their entire season. Their wide receivers have been fucking them so hard all year, whether it's drop passes or stupid mental mistakes and now penalties. It's like, if they had anybody decent at wide receiver, it would be a totally different story, right?
hmm exactly. I agree there.
All right, so that's your 6 through 10. All right, so here's where I got big on my moves. At 6, I got Buffalo. I moved them up 8 spots. And so with them sitting at 7 and 6, I'm not like super thrilled about moving them up 8 spots on the board. But like I said, I didn't want to have like 12 straight spots of gridlock. And so this was one of my ways of kind of clearing that log jam. At 7, I made a similar move with Cleveland. I moved them up 8 spots. And with Cleveland, it's, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little hopeful with this, but it's like we know that their defense is lights out, right? And then out of nowhere, you get freaking old man Flacco come in and throw like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay. I'm not expecting that from him every week, but if Flacco can be at least a decent game manager for Cleveland, their defense is that good where they belong in the top 10. And so I was comfortable making that move. And then after that, I've got the Lions at 8. I dropped them down just one. Jacksonville at 9. I dropped them down just one. And then Kansas City, I dropped them down 4 because, like you talked about, they're having some dysfunction, and so that had to be recognized. And you see it in their frustration. When Mahomes loses his cool in a post game, they got shit going wrong, right? And so,
Hmm.
we don't normally see that out of him. But yeah, back to you at 11, man.
All right, so at 11, I have Houston. I dropped them down 2 spots. They lost to the Jets. Yeah, Stroud was injured, but he was injured late in the game, and they really sputtered. It's also kind of like maybe I got too high on Houston. Um, then 12, Tennessee moved up 4 spots with the win over Miami. It's I didn't feel comfortable moving them up much more because you had to take into consideration that Hill was out and the Miami offense looked way different without Hill than it did with Hill.
Yeah.
Um, at 13, Cleveland, I moved them up 4 spots. This was I basically moved Cleveland up to right about where I had Jacksonville, uh, because Cleveland beat Jacksonville.
Yeah, I
They
gotcha.
barely beat them. So Minnesota at 14, I had left them the same. Look, that was a pathetic game. No, no team should. Well, maybe the Raiders. I can't remember what I did with them, but look, you can't really judge that. You had both. You had like backup quarterbacks playing. You had defense wasn't really looking good. There was no offense in the game, no defense in the game, no scoring in the game. It's kind of
Yeah.
like to me a throwaway game.
Oh yeah.
Um, at 15, I have the Rams. I dropped them down 2 spots, even though they lost to Baltimore. And it's kind of weird with the Rams. It's more of a fact that I had moved Tennessee and Cleveland from up ahead of the Rams based on this past week's games. So the Rams ended up falling 2 spots, even though they took the Ravens into overtime.
I gotcha. Yeah, I hear you. All right, so on my side here, I've got the Bengals at 11. I moved them up one spot. I'm still liking what I'm seeing out of Browning. 12, I've got the Seahawks, and so I dropped them 3. And this is just where the board was messed up for me this week. There were just some strange moves because, like we kind of talked about when you covered Seattle, I thought it was impressive with Drew Lock that they hung in there in that game and they didn't get fucking blown out by 30.
Mm-hmm.
But the board just did some wacky shit this week on my side. At 13, I've got the Texans. I dropped them down 3. And, I think we kind of covered them pretty well at this point. 14 was the Rams. I moved them down 1. I was tempted to just keep them where they were at, kind of like you were saying, but there was just some movement here after I made my bigger adjustments. And then at 15, I've got Denver. I think, they got punched in the mouth the week before, and I talked about how it would be important for them to reestablish themselves. Even though I think I picked the Chargers in that game, I was glad to see Denver get the win because to me, they're back on track now, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
just in time to play Detroit. But hey, like for Detroit, you want to be a legit team, man. You got to fucking come up big when it matters, and this is going to be a big game for both of these teams. And so I'm really excited to see how the Lions play tomorrow. But yeah, back to you at 16, man.
All right. So for me at 16, I have Jacksonville. I dropped them down 5 spots. I'm not really liking what I see from Jacksonville. It's more of a correction for that. And I talked about it, I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, where I wasn't feeling comfortable with how high Jacksonville was getting on the board. And so I think the 5 spots is more of a correction for that than just a reflection of the loss
Sure.
to Cleveland, because I think Cleveland's a really good defensive team, and their offense actually looked real in that game. 17, I have the Colts. I moved them, dropped them down 2 spots. They didn't show up against Cincinnati. That's how I feel. They really didn't show up against them. I
Yeah,
didn't want to kill them too much though because I still had Cincinnati in my top 10 last week. So I didn't want to kill the Colts too much, but I had to drop them to kind of reflect to
sure.
how they looked in that game. 18, the Saints. I moved them up 3 spots off of a win against Carolina. Uh, I know.
Well,
Um,
you're just making adjustments, man.
no, this isn't an adjustment. It was really like what was going on around here. I moved Atlanta. I can get to it later. Had moved Atlanta down. I moved the Chargers down further and stuff like that. So like when
Yeah,
it came down to it, I have Arizona. I'll get that. Denver's the same way at 19, moved up 3 spots. Basically, Denver and New Orleans were a 2 spot bump based on where I was going with my board. And then I realized that Arizona would get a 2 spot drop off of a bye.
okay,
So instead of doing that, I left Arizona at 20 and put Denver and New Orleans ahead of them. And
gotcha.
it's 3 spots. I don't like it, but it's kind of how the board fell this week.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Sometimes that's just the way it works. Yeah, my board's all jacked up this week, and so at 16, I've got the Colts. I didn't move them, and so I kind of gave them the benefit of Browning sort of like reestablishing the Bengals,
Mhm.
and then some other teams in this range losing. And so I thought, okay, now that I'm feeling stronger about Cincinnati again, I didn't want to penalize the Colts as much. At 17, I've got the Vikings. They went up three, which is nuts because they won 3-0, right? But this is just one where they've got heavy favor in my board with all these other adjustments, kind of floated them up. And at 18, this is part of it, is I dropped the Chargers by 7, which honestly I think was a pretty generous move now that you consider Herbert being out for the season. And when I dropped him 7, it was actually before I knew whether he was going to be out for the season or not. So I expect next week I will go further. But typically when you see these things with quarterbacks, I like to kind of do a big drop, but not like massive, because I want to see what you get out of their backup usually, right? And then it's like if you don't get anything, then you just kind of let them fall precipitously down the board. And so that's where the Chargers are going. For anybody who wants to know, they'll be going down. Uh, and then at 19, I've got the Raiders. I dropped them 1 spot. Could have done more, but it's just the board was wonky. And then at 20, I've got the Buccaneers. I moved them up 3. I thought it was a huge win for them. They needed that win over the Falcons, and they got it. And so I gave them a healthy bump there, which helped me get them above Atlanta on my board, which I thought was important to do. So
Yeah.
back to you at 21, my man.
21, I have the Bucks. It's the same thing with you. The 3 spots got them above Atlanta on your board. It was for me it was 4 spots to get above Atlanta because I dropped Atlanta down 3 spots to number 22. Vegas, I didn't move them again. There's nothing like a take. You can't take anything away from that Minnesota game, and
Yeah.
that's I. So I wasn't going to move either. I didn't move either team in that game. 24. I have the Giants. I moved them up 4 spots. Basically, I flipped the Giants and the Packers because the Giants beat the Packers. Chicago got a 4 spot bump to 25 after beating Detroit. Yeah, I didn't move Detroit down, but you have to give credit to Chicago for playing a real game of football, and they're better than the teams that I
Yeah.
have below them. Plus, with we'll get to it a little bit later, but it also has to do with there's a bye in there that they jumped over.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so for me at 21, I've got Atlanta. And so I didn't move them. And part of that is that when I look at the remaining teams on the board, I just still feel a little bit more conviction that the Falcons are better than that next wave of teams. Same with 22. Even though the Packers lost to the Giants, I still, and maybe I'll warm up to DeVito and start to have more faith in the Giants. But I think it's just like the bad taste in my mouth of how bad they were all year. And then it's like we did see some signs of life out of Green Bay.
Hmm.
Maybe it's just timing. Maybe those signs of life now are shifting to the Giants, and I probably, just need another week to see it and feel more comfortable making that adjustment. At 23, I've got the Saints. I moved them up one spot. 24, I've got the Titans. I moved them up two. I really wanted to go higher, but it's tough with how bad they've been. I don't want to have them leapfrogging teams that I feel more conviction about. And then at 25, I've got Arizona. They were on a bye, so they didn't move.
26, I have the Jets. Yeah, they beat Houston, who I had higher on the board. Don't I don't believe that what we saw last week is the real New York Jets,
Yeah.
and I wasn't going to move them. They have to put like four games in a row.
Yeah,
Of
and you're only going to get that kind of offense out of them like once every 4 weeks, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. 27, I have Washington. That's the bye that I mentioned with the Giants and Chicago getting a 4-spot bump. 28, I have Green Bay. I dropped them 4 spots. Like I said, I just flipped the Giants and Green Bay.
yeah, you
Uh,
had them closer than I had them too, and so that's cool.
yeah. 29, I have the Chargers. And I did this, full disclosure, I tried to ignore last night's game when I did this.
Okay.
But they lost to fucking Denver, who's been on a tear. They scored 7 points against Denver, and Herbert got hurt and is out for the season. And
Yeah.
that's without Herbert, it's a different team, which we can see from last night. I don't know if off of last night they'll drop further or not based
Yeah.
on everything else. At 30, I have New England. They moved up 1 spot off of beating Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you never know, man. The Chargers could have, a short-term rally with the head coaching change or whatever, but I
Mhm.
think it's tough with Herbert being out. Um, they're it's like stick a fork in them basically. They're done at this point of the year. So,
Yeah.
all right. So at 26, I've got the Bears. I moved them up one spot. Wanted to go more because, you know, with exception to what was it like the other week or whatever, Fields has really now put together a string of really good games. He's been getting
Hmm.
good yards both through the air with DJ Moore and on the ground running the ball. And so I think he's really making it tough for them to decide, is he the guy of the future or not. It's almost like the way he's playing is buying him maybe some more time, but the jury's still out, right? And
Hmm.
so at 27, I got Pittsburgh, and so this was one of my big adjustments. I'm finally giving up on Pittsburgh, despite their record, which I was giving a lot of respect to. They just look so freaking bad offensively. They lost to two and whatever 10 teams now in a row, and so you know I don't have them in the dumpster fire yet, and I don't know if I ever will put them in there. But man, they're just so freaking bad on offense. Like it's embarrassing.
Hmm.
At 28 and 29, I've got the two New York teams. I've got the Giants, then the Jets. And so for both those guys, despite the wins here, they got blocked on my board. And this is where, even though I made some of these bigger moves, some of these I just couldn't avoid. And so these guys got log jammed in at the bottom, and that's okay. And then Washington at 30, they were on a bye, so they didn't move.
All right. My dumpster fire, I had Pittsburgh at 30, New England at 31 last week. New England beat Pittsburgh. They just got flipped. Pittsburgh dropped down 1 spot to 31, and then Carolina. It's Carolina. Like they
One
were
win.
32. They have 1 win. They are probably they're a surprising team because from based on the defensive stats, it's 100% an inept offense
Yeah.
that's killing them.
Oh yeah. It makes you think that they could easily have 0 wins with how bad that
Hmm.
offense has been, which is just it sucks. It sucks for all those guys on the defensive side of the ball, man.
Yeah, it does.
All right, yeah. So for me at 31, I've got the Patriots. I thought it was a nice win, but they're still only 3-10, and I had Pittsburgh significantly higher, and so the 8 spot drop for Pittsburgh. I really didn't want to go that much more and flip them with New England, but that's okay. And then 32, Carolina just still sits there. And man, I talked early in the year, man. I'm sure you remember like weeks 4, 5, 6, whatever. I was like, man, I want to get these guys out of the dumpster fire, but they just fucking couldn't get any wins. And then they got a win, and I moved them out for 1 week, and then they just fell right back down, and they've been there ever since, man. So, all
Uh, all right.
right, you want to
So
take
you
us
ready?
over to the game picks, buddy?
That's what I was going to ask. All right. So game picks. Last week we had a bad week. You had a worse week than me. I gained one game on you. Yes. I had 7 right. You had 6 right, bringing my total to 110 or 53%. You have 124 or 60%. Last night we both were on the Chargers.
Yeah, we must have both just been asleep at the wheel to not flip that pick, man.
I That's what I was just gonna say. Like I realized, like I think it was I didn't even turn on the game last night. Honestly, until like, we were watching something like a girl entertaining the girls, and then I look at my phone and I say, "Oh shit, today's Thursday."
Yeah,
I look at the score. Oh shit, it's 49 to nothing Vegas. What the
yeah,
hell's happening with the
it's
chart?
actually a wild game. Yeah,
Oh shit! I forgot to tell Huffy that I forgot to look at it and
flip the pick. Yeah,
see if I want to flip the pick. Um. So, anyways, our fuck up.
yeah,
Also, we're gonna say it's this week's picks are in a little bit different order because when the schedule's released, there's 5 games that are to be determined. So we put together our spreadsheet at the beginning of the season. So some of the Saturday games are going to be towards the end. So we're
oh
going to
yeah, that's all
so
good, man.
just to let people know, so like, whoa, why are you starting with Tampa Bay at Green Bay? The
Just
bottle,
suck it, Gil. It is what it is.
the Battle of the Bays, um, old Black and Blue division. I'm not really high on either of these teams. Last week, I told you going into last week because I picked up Jordan Love that he was going to have a shit game. Because I picked him up and had to start him. He was going to have a shit game. And what happened? He had a shit game.
Yeah,
Uh, so the interesting fact about Jordan Love is this week would have probably been the week for me to pick him up and play him because he actually has plays well against the blitz, which the Buccaneers blitz third most blitz rate in the NFL. Jordan Love actually has the 4th highest QBR and 8 passing touchdowns and no interceptions against the blitz.
okay.
Um, Again, we have playoff implications. Green Bay somehow, and I'm going to say this: Green Bay is somehow still alive to win the North. The motherfuckers.
Yeah,
You would think without Aaron Rodgers, this team was going to go down. That's what I thought. They have a puncher's chance at winning the North. They're playing 1 week good, 1 week bad. They have to be a little bit more consistent. I'm not really high on Baker Mayfield, and I think that's why my model picks Green Bay 23-20 because I have Baker Mayfield way downgraded.
okay.
But I'm on Green Bay in this game. I don't really think Green Bay is the better team. I think the matchup suits Green Bay better
Yeah.
than Tampa Bay.
Well, it's at Lambeau. That helps. A little bit of home. I mean, I have the home field advantage as one of my factors, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, like on my power rankings, I've got Tampa Bay like 3 spots higher, but it's pretty close. But with it being in Green Bay in my model, with all that factored in, I've actually got the Packers winning by 3. So the score you said 23-20 was interesting. It got my perked my ears up a little bit. I'm like, yeah, we're in line with this one. And then yeah, heat map wise, I do see Green Bay is having a lot of talent, especially offensively. Um, Tampa Bay, they're really good defensively, and then they have offensive pieces, but they've been really bad running the ball, minus a couple weeks here and there. And yeah, it's like take your pick, man. These guys are very close in my opinion, and I'm just giving it to the home team basically.
All right. Next up, we have the Jets at the Dolphins. I have a bold prediction for you
Okay,
for this game. Zach Wilson will play better against the Dolphins than Tim Boyle did.
okay,
That's my bold prediction for this game. I knew I had this note somewhere. Last week was Zach Wilson's career best game, passer rating wise.
gotcha.
He had 117.9 passer rating last week. I already forgot who they played. Um, but I had it in the wrong side. But Wilson doesn't play well against Miami. He's had 2 starts against Miami, and he has thrown 0 touchdown passes against Miami.
Oh, jeez.
Uh, on top of that, the Jets have lost 10 straight division road games.
Okay.
It's the Jets' second longest streak since the merger, which happened to be from 94 to 97. They lost 12 straight. Any other game, I would say with Miami that my pick depends on if Tyreek Hill plays. I took Tyreek Hill out of my model, and I came up with a 24-9 victory for Miami.
Nice and decisive, yeah.
I thought about putting Hill back in my model, but I didn't have time to do it to see what the score was. But if it's
Yeah.
24-9, as inept as the offense was without Tyreek Hill last week, that's probably my model probably would predict it like a 60 or a 70 to 9 score.
Yeah, so you're taking Miami. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, there's no doubt. Yeah, so for me, my model actually has it as a fairly tight game. It's got it by less than 2 points, but that's because my model is showing it as a divisional game, and my model has so much favor towards the Jets defense. Uh, you know, realistically, throughout the year, I could have been dialing it down to reflect sort of like the offense being like a freaking anchor dragging them to the bottom. But I didn't really do that. And so, the narrative and everything really supports Miami. It's in Miami. And even though my model's got it a little bit tighter, just chalk it up to being a divisional game. I'm with you. I'm taking the Dolphins here. We can't expect this kind of play out of Zach Wilson every week, man.
We can't expect that type of play ever out of Zach Wilson.
No.
So, all right. Next game is the Giants at the New Orleans Saints. Interestingly enough, Tommy DeVito has the second most touchdowns through their first 4 career starts since starts was a stat that was tracked by the NFL in 1950.
Yeah, I hope he creates a quarterback controversy.
Yeah. He has 7 touchdowns through his first 4 starts. He's one off of the record, which is Fran Tarkenton, who threw 8 in his first 4 starts in 1967.
Nice.
With that said, if the Giants win, they will have a 2% chance of making the playoffs.
Oh boy, you're saying there's a chance.
I want to look at where.
Just be careful because I just heard Derek Carr hooked up a lot of his teammates, man. Rolexes, uh, like diamond wristbands. He
Is
got the
Derek Carr
offensive
starting the
linemen a
game?
bunch of grills and uh, chests full of steaks. I mean, he's juicing those guys up, man.
Is Derek Carr starting the game?
I would assume so if he's doing all that for his teammates.
I would too. My model has it as a touchdown, 8-point victory by the Saints. I really, don't want to pick the Saints
Yeah.
because I really don't like the Saints. I don't like them this year. I've been down on them almost this entire year
Yeah, the
since
Dennis
I
Allen
saw
era
Derek
has
Carr.
been stagnant. Yeah.
Yeah, but on the flip side,
How do you
it's the
trust the
Giants.
Giants?
How do you trust the Giants? How do you trust DeVito to have another
Yeah.
good game? And so I can't pick again. I can't override my model and go with the Giants based on the any of the narratives behind the game. So I'm going to stick with the Saints.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, man. I'm taking my model, which has the Saints winning. I did dial down big time all of my coaching ratings for Dennis Allen, but it's still got the Saints winning. The interesting thing is that it actually moves over on the heat map and puts the Giants in favor. Um, which I mean that's fine. Some of that's like Don Martindale, having a higher rating as a defensive coach in my model and whatever else. But um, I'm taking the Saints. I'm sticking with my model, but I personally, just for fun, for shits and giggles, would like to see DeVito
Mm-hmm.
keep winning and see the Giants get the win. The Saints, to me, dude, I'm sick of them, man. They've got so much talent and they're just wasting it. So even though I'm picking them, I would like to see them lose. I know that's weird, but that's just what I'm doing.
All right. Then we're with the Texans at the Titans. And this game, really, my model hinges on if Stroud is starting. It's likely that Stroud is not playing. And with Stroud not playing, my model has Tennessee winning 17-10. With Stroud playing, it flips,
Okay.
and it's about a 10-point swing for Houston with Stroud playing in this game. One thing in this game, the key to victory for Houston is to commit to the run game. The Titans allow 110 rushing yards per game, and where the Texans allow 96 rushing yards per game. But without Stroud, if they can get the run game rolling and just pound the ball, then they have a shot in this game. Interesting thing to look out for is Derrick Henry. If he scores 2 touchdowns in this game, he will be the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson. I'm sorry, if he rushes for 2 touchdowns or more in this game, he'll be the first player since LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006 to rush for more than multiple touchdowns in 4 straight games.
Okay.
If you remember 2006, LaDainian Tomlinson did it in 8 consecutive games.
Yeah, he was, man, and he was like the king of the 1 yard touchdown. I remember,
Mm-hmm.
for being really good, really dynamic. He had a lot of them that were just like right on the goal line.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I'm tentatively on the Titans with the fact that Stroud is out. I might revisit this weekend. I might not.
sure. Yeah, so I picked Houston, and my model actually has Tennessee winning, but I picked Houston because we talked about it, like either last week or the week before, where it's hard to like manually override all the ratings as the year
Mm-hmm.
goes on, and Houston's very clearly been outperforming my model. Tennessee has been underperforming it, and then I made the pick before I saw Stroud being doubtful. But for the sake of, giving us a little bit of action, I'm going to stick with it anyhow. And, even if Stroud is out, I'll take my chances, right? I got a 14 game lead, like I can throw a dog a bone every now and then, James.
I see how it is. You're calling me a dog. I
No,
get it.
hey, I was trying to say I'm helping you out here, my man.
Well, you wanna help me out? Pick Arizona, which is the next game. San Francisco at Arizona. I don't know if there's much to talk about in this game. Yeah, Arizona's been playing better since with Kyler back. They haven't been playing that much better
No.
with Kyler to beat San Francisco. San Francisco had a little hiccup in the middle of the season, which was bound to happen, and they look like they're right back on track, if not better, since that hiccup. Um, so I'm heavily on San Francisco. I think in my model this was the widest spread in of games at 22-point victory by San Francisco.
Yeah, that's pretty steep. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I got to take the 49ers here. My heat map is entirely green for San Francisco, except for the defensive back four. And part of that is that I know the 49ers, they lost, Hufanga. He got
Hmm.
injured a while back. And, had it not been for that, it probably would be entirely green for San Francisco. And yeah, they're rolling, man. And Arizona, I get it. They're wanting to close out strong here with Kyler and whatnot. I just don't see it happening in this game. Plus, it's in San Francisco too, right? I mean, like
Hmm.
everything's stacked against Arizona. It's hard to make that pick. It would be a surprise game of the week if they get the win, though, James.
It would. Next up, we have the Commanders at the Rams. And I'm not really comparing these two players. Stafford has thrown for at least three touchdowns in three straight games. The last Rams quarterback to throw for at least three touchdowns in more than three games
Mark Bulger.
was Kirk Warner. It was
Oh, Kurt
Kurt
Warner.
Warner in 1999 when he did it in four straight games.
Okay. I thought Bulger might have done it, when they had the greatest show on turf. It kind of carried over to him for a couple years, but
Right.
okay.
So, with that said, on top of that, the Commanders have allowed the most passing touchdowns this season at 30, which is, if you do the math, it's just over two a game.
Man, I hate to give you a tangent here, but I just thought, how much would it suck if Ron Rivera gets fired? And I think Rivera honestly probably should get fired, to be honest. But how much would it suck for Eric Bieniemy to move over to Washington and possibly get fired because Rivera's on the hot seat?
Oh,
Because I do think Bieniemy is. I think he's squeezing a lot out of that offense. I mean, Sam Howell is up there in passing yards. It's just that he's working with a very inexperienced quarterback, right? Um, but Rivera, shit, man, he's supposed to be locking down that defense. And I know they fired Del Rio a few weeks ago or whatever, but it's just not. I don't know. I don't know. I went on a tangent. Sorry.
that's okay. I thought Rivera should have been fired a couple weeks ago, but that's another story. Interesting fact is Sam Howell, if he's sacked twice on Sunday, he will become the fourth different player to have be sacked at least 60 times through their first 14 games in the season.
It's a lot, man.
Interestingly enough, the only time he was not sacked multiple times this season was against Philadelphia in week 8.
Yeah, against a team that, you would think with how
Exactly.
stacked they are on defense. Yeah.
Exactly. I just I found that interesting. My model has it as a 33-21 victory for Washington. I'm sorry, for the Rams. There's no way I can switch to Washington,
Yeah.
based on everything that's going on, and with how bad the Washington has looked. I agree with you. I wouldn't be surprised if Rivera gets fired, but it does suck for Bieniemy.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's not going to get an interview, like a legit interview to be the head coach, right? Like
Hmm.
people want to see him prove out as an offensive coordinator away from Andy Reid for probably a couple seasons first, but um, that's okay. Yeah, so in this game, I've got the Rams as well. I mean, heck, the Rams almost just freaking took down Baltimore, right? So, and we did talk about it a couple weeks ago that as long as Stafford stays healthy, Cooper Kupp stays healthy, the Rams can win games offensively. It's still a Sean McVay team. Their defense had been playing better in recent weeks. It's kind of hard to hold anything against them with Baltimore because you got Lamar and all that. But yeah, I just think that they're like in my book at least one tier above Washington, right? And so
Hmm.
it's hard to take the Commanders here. So I'm going with the Rams, man. Bam, we're back.
All right. So our next game is, oh, I lost my place. The Dallas Cowboys at the Bills. For those of you that didn't catch it earlier, that's where I am this week. Playing in that stadium. Just play. Just throw a guess. I'm giving you the answer. Still, if you don't believe me, throw a guess out there. You might get it right if you just look behind me where it says Bills. Um, where the fuck are my notes for this game? My model had this game as a 23-19 victory for Dallas. And I really, based on how Dallas is playing, I really wanted to override my model.
Okay.
Um, so back to with Dak Prescott in the MVP conversation, he has had multiple passing touchdowns in 7 straight games. It's tied with Tony Romo for the second longest streak in Cowboys history. The longest streak is 12 games by Don Meredith.
Okay.
You would think Aikman, but um, no.
Yeah, but they
It's
ran the shit out of the ball in the Aikman era, because they had Emmitt Smith, right?
true, true. But they also had Michael Irving.
I know, I know. That was like that was like still part of that run first era. I mean, you
It's
did
true.
have like the Marino and some stuff like that, but yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, man. Yeah,
So so the good thing is, um, the Bills have been getting James Cook more involved recently, and that will bode well for them to run the ball this week
yeah,
because Dallas has allowed the 5th fewest passing yards in the NFL this season. I wanted to override my model. The reason I didn't, and it was because I'm so far behind you. So I'm going to stick with my model and go with Buffalo in the game. Even though I don't like the pick, I'm probably going to lose the pick, but this is one of the few ones that my model had different than you,
sure, yeah. So you
and
took it, yeah.
and I need to get more point. I need to get more.
Catch up on games. I got
Yeah, I
you.
need to catch up.
Well, hey, I don't think it's a bad pick. So I've seen a lot of people calling for Buffalo to get a win here. My model has Dallas winning. It's actually pretty close, and so I have a clutch quarterback factor built into my model. And um, originally, and this we're talking going back earlier in the year, Josh Allen was in my clutch quarterback list. Dak Prescott was not. If I kept it under that, it would just barely give the edge to Buffalo.
Hmm.
But I can't keep Josh Allen in that clutch quarterback with all the turnovers he's had this year. And so even if I had them both out of the list, by knocking him out, it gives the edge to Dallas. If I added Dak to it because of how well he's been playing, it just makes the spread even bigger for Dallas. And so I got to take the Cowboys here, man.
All right. Next, we have Philadelphia at Seattle. And in my model, this was close enough that I overrode my model on this one. And there's a
Okay.
couple factors that led to me overriding my model. First of all, it's a huge game for Philadelphia and their chances to win the division. If they win, if Philadelphia wins, Philadelphia has an 81% chance winning their division. If they lose, it's about a 50-50 split. Top
So a
seed
lot of pressure.
Yeah, top seed. Um, if Philadelphia wins, they have a 44% chance of getting the number one seed overall versus a 10% chance in a loss. Uh, it's the same with Seattle. It's 46% in a win to make the playoffs, 11% in a loss to make the playoffs. What the overriding factor for me was, first of all, my model had it as a 20-19 victory by Philadelphia. So it was a close game.
Yeah.
But then you look into little intangible stuff that my model can't take into account. And one thing is Seattle is 13-4 on Monday Night Football under Pete Carroll.
Okay.
It's since 2010, it is the only one team has a better winning record or winning percentage. It's a .765 winning percentage for Seattle. Since 2010, only one team has a better winning percentage, which is Pittsburgh, who is 15-3 on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, and it's in Seattle, so they're going to have
It's
the
in
12th man
Seattle.
roaring.
They have the 12th man. Philadelphia's been playing shaky lately on the road, especially. And all that put together, I'm going to override my model and go with Seattle in the game, but it also hinges on who's playing quarterback for Seattle.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I assumed Gino would be back, that he was just going to be out for 1 week, but I haven't actually gotten the update on that.
Exactly.
All right, yeah, so for me, my model's got Philly taking it by more than a touchdown. And man, I like everything you said. I think it makes a compelling case for Seattle, but we got to have a little bit of variation here, and I'm just going to stick with my model anyhow. So I'm sticking with the Philly pick.
All right. Then we're going to go to a game that now this is actually no. I'm sorry. I'm way out of order here. Unless we're way out of order here, but
That's fine.
was this game flexed to Monday night?
I don't know, dude. The schedule here in our spreadsheet got like way jacked up, but it's like you said, it's not our fault. You know, we put together the spreadsheet long ago, and the NFL's made plenty of changes to who's playing when. So
I before when you talk about this next game, I think that both the Sunday night game and Monday night game were flexed.
okay,
So the NFL can. So yes, Monday night was flexed to Monday night, and I think the Sunday night game was flexed as well.
okay.
And I think that's why. know. I couldn't find it real quick. Oh well. Because originally we had the Sunday night game as Baltimore at Jacksonville.
Gotcha. Just got to be flexible.
Yeah. So, anyways, next up we have Baltimore at Jacksonville. I'm really down on Jacksonville and how they've been playing lately. And Baltimore, while they kind of struggled a little bit against the Rams and had to go to overtime, like it can be explained away with Lamar being injured, even though they put up 37 points, and the Rams have actually been playing really good football as of late.
Yeah.
So that can kind of be explained away. Okay, so the Ravens is actually is the Sunday night game. So the Eagles were flexed to Monday night, but this was actually the original Sunday night game.
Okay.
So they last week the Jaguars played the number 1 defense in the league. This week they played the number 2 defense in the league.
Yeah.
Baltimore also leads the league in sacks with 49. And Jacksonville is going to be playing their 4th left tackle of the season and their 3rd left guard because of injuries.
Yeah, they've got offensive line issues big time.
Yeah, big time. In fact, Trevor Lawrence has been sacked 31 times this season. His career high in a season is 32. So he's going to easily get that because he'll probably be sacked a couple times this game. I'm looking for something good to pull out on Jacksonville's side because my model had the game at 29-19 in Baltimore's favor, and there's not much to say good about how Jacksonville's been playing lately. Jacksonville still has about an 80% shot either way. If they win this game, Jacksonville has a 95% shot of winning the division, where if a loss is an 80 spot. But either way, their hopes for a number 1 seed would be about 13% win or loss, where the Ravens have it's about the same for the Ravens, same swing, except for if they win, it's a 68% chance of getting the bye, where in a loss, it's a 30% chance for the Ravens. I just think the Ravens are the better team. I think the Ravens are the best team in the NFL this season. Lamar Jackson is so far staying healthy, and aside from his illness, which didn't really seem to hamper him too much against the Rams. And I just think Baltimore wins this one handily.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I think it was encouraging that Jacksonville put up 27 against Cleveland's defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't know that it's something that they can do week in and week out, especially when you pointed out how well Baltimore is at getting at the quarterback. Jacksonville has known offensive line problems. I got to take Baltimore, man. My model's just too heavily in their favor.
All right, then we have the Chiefs at the Patriots, which was originally the Monday night matchup for this week, from what my notes say.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, right here. This game was originally scheduled for Monday Night Football before becoming the first ever Monday Night Football game flexed to Sunday.
Because Bill Belichick is sucking ass, and we just can't do this.
Apparently, Bailey Zappi is going to play again for New
Good.
England because Mac Jones can't play. It's a better shot for New England if Zappi plays versus Mac Jones.
I think they should put Kansas City on upset notice, to be honest. because you know New England's defense is legit,
Hmm.
and Zappy has gotten their offense moving the ball. And so, you know, Kansas City should win. And I'm not saying I'm taking the Patriots because I'm definitely taking Kansas City. But I don't think Kansas City should be comfortable at all in this game, especially the way the last 2 weeks played out for them.
Oh, I agree with you. And actually, surprisingly, as much as I talk bad about New England, my model has this as a closer game than you would expect. It has a
Okay.
19 to 10 victory for Kansas City. So I agree with you. Kansas City should be on upset alert. Um, if New England loses this game, it doesn't really matter either way. They're not going to get the number one pick. They have in a loss, New England would have a 4% chance of getting the number one overall pick.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I believe Ramondre Stevenson is still out, and he's about the only player on the offense for New England that actually can play football.
Yeah.
And also this season, can this season New England is 3-10 against the spread.
Okay. Hey, they got Hunter Henry still, right? But they got to get somebody to get him the ball.
Well, if you can't throw the ball to him,
Yeah.
can't count him as
Come
somebody
on,
that knows how to play
Zappy.
football. So New England currently has the worst cover percentage against the spread in the NFL this season, and this game doesn't bode well. It doesn't necessarily bode well for them. It's only a 7.5 point spread. My model has it as a 9 point victory for the Chiefs, and I'm gonna stick with that.
Okay. Yeah, we both got KC. Easy enough.
All right. And then we have Atlanta at Carolina. Um,
Divisional game.
It's a divisional game. There's not much to write home about. It's not going to be an offensive slugfest, to say the least. It's not going to be a defensive slugfest, to say the least, either. Two offenses that play really sloppy. My model has two touchdowns scored in the entire game. It does not have Carolina scoring a touchdown. It has Atlanta scoring two touchdowns and a field goal and winning 17-9.
Okay.
There's nothing good to say about either of these teams. It's a disappointing season for both of them. Like we said, the defense for Carolina has been playing good yards per game wise, but the offense just has not been doing shit. And as bad as the offense has been, it's a surprise that Carolina's defense is doing so well.
Yeah.
So I'm on Atlanta. I don't know. There's not much good to say. So
No, and I'm with you. I'm taking Atlanta as well. My model's got a little bit closer. I got it as a 3 point spread, but part of that's because it's a divisional game. Part of that's because Carolina's defense is good. Um, but my heat map is mostly green for Atlanta. I think they find a way to squeeze it out just because Carolina can't do anything on offense, and Atlanta does have weapons. It's just give them enough time, and they'll find a way to score on that defense. I'm with you on that, and so I'm taking the Falcons here too.
then we have the Saturday afternoon game, or morning, depending on where you are. And I'm glad, if I remember correctly, none of these 4 Saturday games are on streaming only, because that would just piss me the fuck off. Like
Yeah,
the wild card game that's going to be on Peacock only. I figured one of these games would be on Peacock, and I'd be forced to get a Peacock trial. But first, the Vikings at the Bengals, 2-7-6 teams. Jake Browning has the Bengals have won their last 2 games. But over the last 8 games, the Vikings have allowed the fewest points per game at 15.3.
Okay.
Although the Bengals are 4-0 against the NFC teams they played this season so far, and have won 8 straight against the NFC, which is tied for the Ravens for the longest active win streak against non-conference opponents, and tied for the longest streak in Bengals history. I don't think they get 9. Um, I I'm hesitantly on the Vikings. I have it as a 20-16 victory for the Vikings, which my model kind of lines up with the fact that the Vikings have allowed 15.3 points per game over their last 8 games. I think just like it's not going to be as much of an offensive explosion for Minnesota, but just like Vegas last night, after that dismal performance last week, Minnesota's going to come out to prove something,
Yeah.
and they'll win the game. They'll put up 20 points instead of 700 or whatever.
Yeah.
It was scored last night, 63. But I think Minnesota still wins the game in a close game.
I gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I agree that they're going to want to come back and rally off of that weak offensive performance. But for me, I like what Browning's been doing since he came back in. I think he breathed new life into the Bengals. And, they've got weapons all around them on offense. And their defense, we know, has been solid for a few years now. My heat map, it's kind of staggered with Minnesota. I thought it would have been more in favor of Cincinnati, just kind of going from the gut, but they kind of trade back and forth, zigzag down a little bit. But I still have Cincinnati winning by almost 4 points in my model, and so I'm going to stick with that, man.
All right. Then we're going to jump back to Sunday, and then we'll go back to the other Saturday games. We have the Bears at the Browns. So I think this game against the Browns will be a better game for Justin Fields. The last time Justin Fields played the Browns, Myles Garrett had almost as many sacks as Justin Fields had completions. Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks the last time Fields played the Browns, while Fields had 6 completions.
Okay. uh, yeah, and I'm sure Chicago's offensive line is a little better now,
Mm-hmm.
but still, that's not good. So,
It isn't. It's not good at all. So my model actually has this as a super close game. I was surprised as actually how close my model had this. It had a 14-12 victory for Cleveland. It will. I think this game will break the 3-game streak that Fields has of at least 1 touchdown. Because Fields has had 3 touchdowns. He had one touchdown in each of his last 3 games since he returned from the injury. He has 609 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games, which is good. He's showing stuff. But you also have to look at the teams they played. Yeah, one of them was against Detroit, who struggles against Chicago for some reason.
it's
The
the
mobile
mobile quarterback, man. Yeah.
quarterback kills them, and the defense for Detroit leaves a lot to desire. That's one of them. But I think in the Joe Flacco versus Justin Fields battle, I think Joe Flacco wins this one. Another interesting fact is Joe Flacco has thrown at least 1 interception in each of his last 2 starts.
Okay. Yeah, and Chicago's defense has been on a tear for a little while now, so
Yeah.
they could give them a fight. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, it's hard for me to figure out where to rate Flacco, right? Because he's not played in a while, and he didn't play well at all when he was with the Jets. And so, um, but I still love the Cleveland defense, and I got to put him at least like middle of the pack based off of last week. And so that has me with Cleveland winning by at least 6 points. And so I'm good with that just out of how streaky Chicago's been and how good that Cleveland defense has been.
All right. Then we have the Broncos at the Lions.
Big time game here.
It's a big time game for the Lions. These two teams don't. The Lions have been struggling lately, basically since the Chicago game. They played one good quarter of football, maybe two,
Yeah.
and the Lions are at 9-4, where the Broncos have played mostly good football over the last, what was that, 4 games, and
I
they played
think Denver's been good 5 out of 6, right?
yeah,
Or 6 out of 7.
yeah, something ridiculous like that. These teams seem to be going in opposite directions. Where Denver seems to be putting it together, and the flaws for Detroit are being highlighted, exposed even greater. With that said, my model actually has Denver winning the game 27-17.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't want to pick against the Lions, especially in such a big game. It's a primetime game, and
At Ford Field.
At Ford Field, which that's the recipe for the Lions to have a good game. In primetime at Ford Field on a nationally televised game, they play well. On Thanksgiving, early in the day, they don't play well. They shit the bed. I think that continues, and I'm going to override my model and pick Detroit in the game, but I'm going to say that I wouldn't be surprised Denver does pull the game out.
No, I agree with you. You know, you broke it down well by talking about them being on different trajectories. I think that's the best way to put it. Denver's rising. Detroit's kind of sputtering out right now. But I think Detroit knows they got to get their shit in gear. It's a home game. If it's going to happen, this is the time to do it. My model's got Detroit winning by 2.5. I'm sticking with it. And I think it could go either way with these teams. But, you know, it's the first time in many, many years where I've been able to back Detroit. And so I got to do it as much as I can here, man.
I got you. It's kind of the same with me. Like, I'm just hesitant to pick against the Lions because I don't want to put that karma out.
Some bad juju, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Then we have the last game of the weekend, which is actually the second game of the weekend. The Steelers at the Colts.
Yeah. What do you? I don't know, dude. How do you? It's just this is. Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
The Steelers have won 8 consecutive games against the Colts in regular season and playoffs. It began in 2011 with the Colts' last win coming in 2008 with under Peyton Manning. Tomlin was hired for Pittsburgh in 2007. He was 8-1 against the Colts, and a lot of that 8-1 is against Peyton Manning.
Okay.
While I'm really down on Pittsburgh, really, really down on Pittsburgh this year, I'm not as down on the Colts. My model has it as a 21-20 victory for Pittsburgh, and I've been toying with overriding my model in this game because of where I see. But from what I'm reading, TJ Watt is out of concussion protocol, so he should be good to go for the game, and I think that makes a difference for Pittsburgh's defense. While it might be a slight difference, it's still a difference for Pittsburgh's defense, and I think Pittsburgh will pull the game out. But that said, I still wouldn't be surprised if the Colts won the game, but I'm going to go with Pittsburgh in the game with my model.
I gotcha. Yeah, my model has Pittsburgh winning, but I I just don't trust it because offensively, Pittsburgh's done nothing all year. And
Hmm.
so, um, these are ones where the model, it's kind of like we were talking earlier with Houston. It's like sometimes the model doesn't reflect what's going on. And Pittsburgh is not living up to the model, whereas Indianapolis is overperforming the model. And as much as I tweak it or whatever, I'm not going to like get it to flip unless I do some really crazy shit. But
Hmm.
it's just like what I see on the field between these two teams is telling me I got to go with Indy here. And so I'm taking the Colts, man.
All right. And then we're to the Thursday night game, which is the Saints at the Rams. I mean, there's not much to say. The Rams have been playing good lately. I'm really down on the Saints. I'm starting to get back on the Rams bandwagon. We've talked about it with the Rams, with their key offensive players staying healthy. It's a much better team than it is if they're missing one of those players. With the Saints are just inept this year. I I the only reason I picked them for Sunday to win is because they're playing the Giants,
Yeah.
who are even more inept this year. So for next Thursday, I'm going to take the Rams.
Okay. Uh, yeah, I'm with you, dude. I'm taking the Rams. I know I just like got distracted there for a second, but um the yeah. Well, I gotta here. Let me
What?
just
Hold on. Hold on.
what's up?
This is breaking news.
Uh-oh.
Might have to go back and change a pick.
Okay.
The Chargers have named an interim head coach, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings.
What? Holy shit. Well, good for Flores. That's a strange thing, right? You don't
Yeah,
usually see him pluck a coach from another team mid-season like that.
it's he will coach against the Bengals on Saturday and leave the team and take over the Chargers. This is the first time a team has named an active coordinator on an opposing team as an interim head coach.
Wow. Yeah, you would think that there would be
Wow.
complications to that because of the contract situation, right?
Yeah, you would think so too. I but I don't think the team can block it because of the whole minority hiring
Oh yeah, and they wouldn't want
thing.
to anyhow, but yeah, it does put them at a disadvantage though, because now they're losing their coordinator, who's been
Yeah.
really good for them.
Yeah, I sorry. I don't didn't mean to
No, it's
interrupt.
cool. It's cool. I'm taking the Rams. We don't need to get into it, but yeah, I'm not going to change my picks based off of that, but maybe in future weeks as I see
Yeah.
Flores get his feet under him.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if like how does that happen?
They're making history. I think that was a really smart move by the Chargers.
Oh,
I think
it's a
Flores,
great
yeah.
move by the Chargers. So this is gonna go into question of the week, so we might as well go there to question of the week.
Yeah. All right.
You
Well, yeah. So I'll throw it out there and I'll let you kind of take the ball and run with it. But yeah, for question of the week, I'm just asking, were the Bolts right to fire Brandon Staley mid-season? And I'm asking that because we've asked that pretty much every time there's been a mid-season coaching change, because sometimes it's like a team makes a guy a fall guy. Sometimes it seems premature, sometimes whatever. There's always a lot of reasons behind it, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. Um, and so, yeah, James, why don't you give me your 2 cents on what's going on with the Chargers and Brandon Staley and all that stuff?
okay? So I I was hoping you
Oh, you want me to go
which
first?
you would
Okay,
go first because
sure.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to verify.
yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, and so it's nothing crazy on my end. You know that I am not a Brandon Staley fan. There was a lot of hype when he got hired because he was supposedly like the defensive guru for the Rams in like whatever the 1 year he was the defensive coordinator. And uh, the Chargers defense has sucked despite having a lot of talent at a lot of different levels. And that drove me nuts with Brandon Staley because it's like, look, man, if you're that good, why is your team better on offense than it is on defense? And he just never found a way to improve it. You had obviously the complicit tie thing with the Raiders, which was all messed up. Um, but at the end of the day, the results just were never there. And to me, he got lucky as fuck that Herbert ended up being so good. Otherwise, he would have been fired a long, long time ago because Herbert has been like one of the top quarterbacks in the league, basically saving his ass. But even then, you've got that jackpot on offense, and you're still so bad on defense. It just he should have been fired a long time ago. The midseason stuff I always think is interesting because it's almost kind of like as a team, hey man, you made your bed, now you kind of got to lay in it. You're only a couple weeks away from the end of the season. I could have seen them riding him out because it's done for them. They're not going to make the playoffs. Herbert's out for the season. It's almost like let him finish it out because why are you going to drag somebody else through the mud in the process? But at the end of the day, it had to happen, man.
Okay, so I have been trying to verify it through other sources, and it might be a rogue report
Okay.
on that. It might be somebody trying to
Oh
punk
shit. Well,
me,
that would suck.
because I'm not finding anything else on it,
Okay.
and I now can't find that report that I found.
Oh, so maybe it was just like a fucking random tweet or some shit.
So I'm
So I'm
I
showing
don't.
Joe Shad on Twitter or X, whatever they call it, saying Brian Flores is mentioned as the Chargers head coach, but um, it doesn't say that it's happening.
So
Oh,
yeah,
oh yeah, yeah. Sports Illustrated, it's saying this is 10 hours ago. The Chargers could target. Oh wait, no, that's not what it says. Uh, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
yeah. See, I'm not finding anything else.
Well, it'd be sweet if it happened.
Yeah. So I don't know. Was it a rogue report or because I'm not finding. Anyways, so yeah, Joe Shad mentioned as a candidate. Uh, uh, but I'm not finding. Let me. I'm just glancing because let me see what Adam Schefter.
Yeah, Sports Illustrated saying Kellen Moore could be the interim coach. I mean, that's obviously because he's their offensive coordinator. He's in-house. And then they're looking at Derek Ansley, their
Okay,
defensive coordinator.
I'll
Those
go
are
back to the
obvious
question of the week.
picks.
I'll
But
go
yeah,
back to
then
the
it
question of the
then it
week. So
says Flores, but they're looking at Flores. I mean, yeah, they're saying they could look outside the organization and bring in Flores as the
Okay.
interim coach.
The best pick for them would be Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Where it fell apart with Miami with Brian Flores is because he wanted to draft Justin Herbert over Tua Tagovailoa. He got overruled, and that's where it started to fall apart for him in Miami. In addition to that, did they make a mistake by firing Brandon Staley midseason, or is it too early? Should they wait at the end of the season? They should have fired Brandon Staley immediately after he said, "You know what, Raiders? It's great that you're playing for the tie. I want the win.
Yeah.
Timeout." And didn't make the playoffs. Then last year, at the end of the season, the playoff, they collapsed. Did they make the playoffs last year, or was it the last game of the season? They lost. I know they lost to Jacksonville like week 17 and collapsed against Jacksonville, and I can't remember if they made the playoffs last year. I'm pretty sure they did, and then they fucking didn't do shit. Then you have so many instances throughout this season, where I will use the phrase, he didn't know how to coach his way out of the paper bag. I was saying he should have been fired last year during the season.
Yeah.
I was saying he should have been fired the previous year during the season. The entire time we've been doing this show, I've been saying they need a new head coach. Did they fire him too early? No. They held on to him way too fucking long.
No, yeah, I guess I wasn't meaning to say was it too early, but was it right to do it mid-season with just a couple weeks left?
They should have done it 2 years ago.
I agree. It should have happened a long time ago. So yeah, fuck him. He's out. Hopefully they get a good coach and Herbert can have some glory because they still have a lot of talent on that team, man.
And I don't know. I can't even find the report that
It disappeared on you. You need a hacker to go and find it in the internet because it's out there somewhere, James.
That's really annoying for me that I said it and didn't vet it.
You got bamboozled. No, it could happen, dude. It could happen.
But anyways, so I can't believe that they held on to him for as long as they did.
Yeah.
It should have.
It made no sense.
It made
no sense to hang on to him that long.
Probably should have happened a couple weeks ago. It didn't. They fired him. They finally came to their senses.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's all good, man. It was time. It was overdue. All right. Well, yeah. So for tonight, dude. I know you're still digging there, but you got any closing thoughts before I wrap it up here?
I don't think so. I'm gonna probably spend way too much time trying to find the rogue report.
That's okay. Well, hey, listen, let's wrap it up. Anybody who's watching, we hope you liked the show. If you did, throw us a like. James gave you like the easiest possible layup for Name That Stadium if you want to get in on that action. And question of the week, we're always looking for people to make comments and get engaged with us. And otherwise, hit that subscribe button and check us out. Check us out again next week. All right, peace out.
See you, James.
Gridiron Grinder, hut hut hike.